The next portion of our program celebrates the game's collective past. The Hall of Fame began a new tradition several years ago at the family reunion dinner, welcoming back and celebrating the careers of Hall of Famers from past classes. Today, when things are moving faster than ever at lightning speed, we like to take a few minutes to reminisce with returning family members and to reflect on the lives and careers that built this game and this institution into the world-class facility you see in front of you tonight. Tonight's special guests certainly live up to the setting. And tonight's panel has a specific theme in keeping with this year's remarkable Hall of Fame class, a celebration of USA Basketball and our outstanding Olympic history. Time to meet that panel now. He's been involved in basketball for over 50 years as a player, coach, and administrator and won more than 500 games. He was a pioneer in integrating basketball at Transylvania College, Alabama, and Kentucky. And as president of USA Basketball, he helped change the Olympic team from college players to NBA players, overseeing the selection of the 1992 Dream Team. Enshrined in 2000, Charles Martin C.M. Newton. A member of the 1960 gold medal winning U.S. Olympic team, he was named the NBA's 1961 Rookie of the Year, following a 31-point, 19-rebound year for the Chicago Packers. He played in 1,043 of 1,055 games during his 14-year pro career with 7 different teams and was 4-time an NBA All-Star. Enshrined in 1993, Walt Bellamy. Yes, Charles, he averaged 31 and 19. He had a collegiate career that can be matched by very few, leading Ohio State to the Final Four 3 straight seasons and winning the national championship in 1959. He led the 1960 Olympic team to a gold medal as he was the co-leading scorer, leading rebounder, and leading shooter on that legendary squad. He was the Rookie of the Year in 1964 and finished his career 4th all-time in rebounding. Inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 1980, and later recalled as one of the 50 greatest players in NBA history, Jerry Lucas. Hi, Charles. He was named the SEC, you're not up yet. He was named the SEC Player of the Year in 1984 and later named the 1980s SEC Player of the Decade. He spent 8 fabulous years with the Philadelphia 76ers, then was traded to the Phoenix Suns for the 92-93 NBA season, during which he won the league's MVP award and led the Suns to the NBA Finals. A 5-time NBA All-First Teamer, an 11-time NBA All-Star, and a member of the 92 Dream Team himself, Charles Barkley. And he led a team who had never been to the NCAA tournament all the way to the championship game and received college basketball's highest honors for doing so. A winner of the Naismith and Wooden Awards, he was the 6th overall pick by the Boston Celtics in the 1978 NBA Draft. He went on to win 3 NBA titles in Boston, was the league's MVP 3 times, and a 12-time All-Star. You'll find his number 33 retired down the road in the rafters at TD Garden. I believe you're familiar with his work. Larry Bird. All right, gentlemen, first question is an easy one for all of you. If you could just reflect on your Olympic experience and what it meant to you.
Well, the Olympic experience was different than anything I had experienced because you put USA on your shirt and you're representing your country rather than a particular university. But 1992 was a particularly pivotal year for the world of college basketball, or world of basketball, both in the United States and within FIBA, because it was the first time that the professional player had been permitted to play in FIBA competition. And to see Larry and Charles and Carl and so many of these others, David and Patrick and Chris and on, Scotty, come together and pull that thing together the way they did was outstanding. That to me is one of the highlights of my experience internationally.
Gentlemen, in 1960?
The only experience that I could relate to is what Coach Newton has said, and that is to have represented the United States first as a player, but then second as a underclassman at Indiana University, and had been chosen as a member of the 1960 team, obviously is an outstanding feat of any player's feat, but for me personally, the only one. I venture to say that in 1960 was doing a great deal of unrest in our country. However, in the Olympic Village, we discussed, we shared that with other countries, hopefully to be ambassadors for the United States. But single mostly, the contribution and attributes of the 1990s team, 1960 team, and the margin of victory that that team compiled is beyond any other single most athletic endeavor that I could relate to.
It's always a thrill, obviously, to be elected to play on the United States Olympic team, and it was especially a thrill for me. Terry Disher and I were only 20 years old, so we were the youngest players on that team. I don't know if we were the youngest Olympic basketball players in history, but we were very young. It was such a thrill to play with players like Oscar Robertson and Jerry West, who went on to be some of the greatest players in the history of the game. My experience, I was fortunate to be the first player in the history of this game to win a championship at every level. A high school state championship, a national collegiate championship, an Olympic gold medal, and a world professional championship. And as I look back on my career, I only had one chance to win an Olympic gold medal because we had to be an amateur to play in those days. And so that was the one opportunity I had, and that was one of the, obviously, the crowning jewel in my crown of basketball, a memory that we will never, ever forget. And we had a little discussion tonight over in that room over there about what was the best Olympic basketball team ever assembled. And I'd like Charles to know that it's a joy to sit next to a player who played on the second best Olympic basketball team in history.
Well, first of all, I come up here today, I'm in a really good mood. I walk in the room and start having lunch, and Mr. Booth says to me, "We would have kicked y'all ass." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I played on the 60 Olympic team, and we've been going at it all day." And I told him, I said, "First of all, nobody wearing Chuck Taylors can guard me, okay?" Okay? If a guy got on Chuck Taylors, you talk about, what they always say, breaking ankles. We will definitely be breaking ankles. But I tell you what, it has been so fun, and I will piggyback on what these guys said. When you put that USA jersey on, it gives you chills. But I will tell people, in my life, I've never felt what I felt when they played the national anthem when you win the gold medal. That is, like, out of all the things that happened in my life, I tell people, man, when they play that national anthem and you standing up there, it sends chills through your body.
Surprise you?
Yeah. You know, I'm from Leeds, Alabama. We big down there. I've experienced a lot in Alabama. I've killed a chicken, wring his neck. I shot a hog in the head. So I didn't realize it was going to be exciting standing up there on that stage. You know.
I'm not sure any of that is relevant to this discussion.
How can you follow that? Actually, we did a little bit of that too down in French Lick, Indiana. But the experience that you have being from a small town in southern Indiana, just every once in a while get to watch the Olympics on TV if you get it on the antenna of the rabbit ears, and seeing the teams play or the athletes compete, and watch, like Charles said, watch them standing on that and playing the Star Spangled Banner. If you're not involved in it, it feels good for you because it makes you feel proud to be American. Then actually have the opportunity, and thank you for C.M. Newton and Dave Gavin and all the other ones that put it together in the last year of my career to be able to play in the Olympics. And like Charles said, stand on that stage and listen to Star Spangled Banner. It is no feeling in the world better than that. Even you, honey. So, But it's just a great experience.
Cheesecake. I was told that would work. For you 1960 Olympians, you know, people watch the Olympic Games now and even the World Championships, and if they're NBA fans, they see familiar faces on the other teams because there's such an international presence, and those players are familiar not only to the fans, but to the players who are up against them. Back in 1960, those entities were quite literally foreign teams in every sense of the word. You not only didn't know the players, you hadn't seen them before, maybe didn't know how they were going to play. Maybe it didn't matter because you beat them by 1,000,000, but what was it like playing against those guys you knew virtually nothing about and who were so much older than you were?
Well, if we at that time, with Coach Womble, Coach Newell, we thought that we had some of the best basketball players in the world. We did not know that the ball that we would be playing would be smaller, soccer size. We did not know that we would have international rules. We were made aware of that, but we didn't know what to expect. And so we were out there on our talent, and we felt like the talent that was assembled on that team should be, and it has been, and will be, the best basketball team in the world.
And it worked out for you. How noticeable was the age difference when you first got out there against those guys?
Well, I don't think we really thought about that. We were playing the game. We were playing against a team, whatever that team was, and most of the players were older than us, but we were obviously the best team in the world then. And I know when we played against the Russian team, I was fortunate to be the starting center on our team. The Russian player, the center on that team, was a guy by the name of Jan Krumish. Jan was, I don't know, what was he, Bill? 7'5" or 7'6" or 7 something. A huge man, and from the neck down, he looked like he was on steroids. Had one of the most incredible bodies in the history of mankind. But from the neck up, you wouldn't want to run into him in a dark alley, I'll guarantee you that. He was a nice guy, fun to play against. It was an experience every night. I know I learned a few phrases of the language we were going to, for the team we were going to play. And I was very fortunate. The first game we played against was the Japanese team. And good morning, we played early in the morning against the Japanese team. And most of them, Charles, I know you played against a team nobody ever heard of in Angola. But in those days, the Japanese weren't very tall. You know, they're not a very tall team. And so good morning in Japanese means Ohio. And I'm an Ohio native from Middletown, Ohio. So I spoke to that young player. He backed out of the jump circle, started to bow like crazy, rattle off Japanese to me. And I suppose I said Ohio about 1,000 times that particular game. But it obviously was a great experience. We were prepared. Our coaching staff had scouted the other teams. And there was no team that can come close to us as this team as well.
I'm curious to get your perspective, the 1960 Olympians, on how much the international game has evolved since you played back then. Obviously, in World Championships and Olympic Games, these teams are a lot more competitive than back when you saw them. Are you amazed by what you've seen from the rest of the world since that time?
Well, obviously, the rest of the world has improved immensely. The game has evolved. You look behind us and you see an evolution of basketball in these particular hoops. And, you know, when you mention the word evolution, I'm reminded of John Wooden and Pete Newell. Pete Newell, our coach, and C.M., you'd be interested in this. Terry Dischinger and Darrell Imhoff and I, a number of years ago, were at a basketball camp, the USA Basketball Camp that Darrell was involved in, and they were naming two dorms, one for Mr. Wooden and one for Mr. Newell. And they had a very interesting, not a clinic, but a question and answer period with about 300 young basketball players. And I'll show you how the game has evolved. One question was to Mr. Newell and Mr. Wooden, what's the biggest change you've seen in the history of basketball? And there'll be some young people here who will be amazed when they hear these things. And Mr. Wooden said, I'd like to answer that question first. He said, I think the thing that changed basketball the most was the elimination of the jump ball after every made basket. And of course, those coaches were looking at each other thinking, what is that man talking about, you know? And then Mr. Newell said, I would agree with you, Coach, but I think the second thing that changed the game the most was the mid-court line when it was put into the game. So obviously our game has evolved, it's improved, it continues to get better, the players are better, foreign countries are better, the competition is better, but there's no better players in the world, of course, than the US of A. There's no doubt about that.
C.M., 32 years after that gold medal in Rome, you helped assemble what is widely recognized as the greatest basketball team ever put together.
Yeah, I really got involved in '76 in international basketball, and I think one of the key pioneers is also one of the pioneers of this hall, and that's Dave Gavitt. Dave has not received as much applause and accolades as I think he's deserving of, because it was under Dave's leadership that Larry, that we were able to make that transition from amateur ABA USA to USA Basketball, where the NBA became an integral part of the organization. But watching the changes, one of the Olympic coaches in '84 with Coach Knight, which was a tremendous experience. Chris was on that team. Charles could have been on the team, but he wanted to go back to Leeds and eat fried chicken or whatever the hell he wanted to do. I don't know what he wanted to do. He should have been on the team, but
I know what you want. I should have been on the team, but Bobby Knight was a prick. That's what you mean.
No. He was a good one. But as we
he's a great coach. He's a great coach. I told the guy sent me and Karl Malone and John Stockton home and Terry Porter together.
Well, much of the '92 was very similar, though. When I chaired the committee that put the team together, it was obvious that the players left off of that team were going to be as significant as the players that made the team, because you could only have 12, and we made the decision that Christian Laettner would be the college representative. But the key thing about '92 that I think is significant to me is guys like Larry Bird and Charles and others who had not, Karl, Stockton, others who had not played or had come out during the Olympic year. Larry, you were a sophomore or something that year, and you really had no chance to play on the Olympic team until '92, and to see where the greatest players in the world were given the opportunity to play internationally, and that's what we ought to have had. And that's what occurred with open competition. And Dave Gavitt was key on that. Tom McGrath, who's in the crowd tonight, was a very key player in all of that. And just so many people that contributed to this overall thing. I'm just very proud to have been a small part of it.
It's easy to look back now, 18 years later, and see what a transcendent team that was, not just because you won by 1,000,000 points and won your way back to a gold medal for the United States, but because of what happened
How much
afterwards.
did the '60 team win by?
43,
How many did the '92 team win by?
17.
Matt, you got the
I don't-
stats
it's
over
back
there.
over there. They're very close. They were both 40-point margins.
They're not very close, Matt. Don't you have your stats in
They're
your
over
card?
there.
So they think they won by more points than we did.
Are you saying that's the measure of greatness?
No. They
Okay.
said, you said they won every game by 44. Then you said our closest game was 32. They
Yeah.
think that was our average. Tell them that was our
No, that
closest.
was the closest game.
Thank you.
They won by 40 plus.
Hey, Charles, you got to believe him, because back then we had no TV, no film, and now they don't have any stats. So whatever happens, happens.
And we wore a thin piece of rubber with canvas on our feet.
That's true. I was about to ask, now you look back and you can see how transcendent that team was and how you guys became an iconic basketball team. How aware were you at the time of what was taking place, the transition?
I mean, our team,
Yeah.
from amateur,
And what?
We knew.
How cognizant
Believe me.
were you, not only just the transition to pros, but what it would mean to basketball in
Oh,
general?
Dave Gavitt told me before he even got over there, he said, this is going to change the way the whole world looks at the game. And he was right on the money, because it changed everything. It not only helped our game going forward, but it's been tremendous throughout the whole world. And what a major change. And the vision that he had before we even played our first game is just amazing to me.
It was interesting because when we got together, we just wanted to win. But then when we got to Spain, like the front door of the hotel was from here to about you, from the front door to the bus. And like when we first got there, so we get up, everything's cool. We get up the next morning, we go to practice, and we look around the corner. There's like 5,000 people there that want to watch us walk from me to you. And we're like, damn, that's 5,000 people standing out there just to watch us get on the bus. And every time somebody walked by, they started screaming their name. There was people lined up along the highway. I mean, it was, when you were there, you're like, wow, it must be a pretty big deal. Because clearly when we're in the United States, we're not thinking like that we're going to be big in a foreign country. But it was magnificent.
And we've heard stories about the reactions of the opposing players as well, as you're out there on the floor with them.
Well, they would say,
Tell them that story about when we went around their bus, the final game. We had a police escort every time. We go fast and cars get out of the way, and we always went 40, 50 mile an hour. Police be way up there getting traffic. We get up there, and all of a sudden we look, and they go, hey, there's Yugoslavian team. They pulled them over the side and let us go by. That wouldn't be much fun. I think I'd be a little ramped up to play, but it looked like they were scared, Chuck.
You know, it was really weird. We had a police car in front, a police car in back, an armed motorcycle guard on each side of the bus, and a helicopter above the bus. And the whole way to the arena, there was people on the side of the road waving at us. And by the time we got to the game, we were so jacked up because, like I say, between the 5,000 people watching you go on the bus with a police escort and people lined up along the highway waving at you, when you got to the game, you're like, let's get this thing started.
Charles, I want to tell you how important our team was. In 1960, track was the most important thing. And we rode a train from Switzerland to Rome, and the track team got up front in the air conditioning, and we had to sit in the back car with the chickens. So that's how important our basketball team
Got to take his word for it again.
Jerry, Charles could have killed those for you.
That's right. You just keep turning, man, and let them go.
But it's another great.
One thing that I think is, and this may not be a very popular thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I've seen a lot of teams put together, and I've never seen a team like the '92 team for this reason. First of all, Chuck Daly and Lenny and PJ and Mike, as coaches, they convinced the players that they had to not just play against the score or against the team, but they had to play perfect games. And I never forget, and I'll quit with this because I don't want to talk too much. I asked Chuck Daly after the gold medal, or just before the gold medal ceremony, I said, Chuck, what are you most proud of with this team that you've accomplished? And he said, well, I think the thing I'm most proud of is that we were able to achieve our goal of winning the gold medal without bruising too many egos. And I think that's a very significant statement because these guys were the best in the world as players, and they played as one. And I'll always be appreciative of what they've accomplished.
Coach, we want to be responsive to your eloquence relative to this great team. However, the footnote should read that the 1960 team was all amateur players. Correct. We did take from the armed services, we did have players from the industrial league that made up the 60 team. And so, and our team, the 60 team, applaud the dream team. We were ecstatic with their results. But when you get down to a common denominator, we don't know what size ball that they play with. We don't know if the rules were international. We don't know how wide the lane was. And so again, there are so many factors that would diminish some of the eloquence that we heard relative to this.
Well, I tell you what.
I'm not going to get into
I
this.
tell you what. Why don't we get all these people to get their ass out of here and let's play right now? We got plenty of baskets right now.
We got rims. Yeah.
We got plenty of baskets.
Regulation-size basketballs all over the place.
Well, and we're not going to accept that challenge. However, we would like to know. We would like to know who on the dream team is going to play against Terry Disher and Jerry Lucas.
I'll take them both.
Just a name or two. We just a name or two.
We'll take y'all both.
Berta Hollison from the Industrial League. Who's going to take? I don't know if I'm looking at the roster straight. I don't know if you could do that this evening and this go. So maybe you should reconsider. You don't have the right shoes on. We brought shoes for this challenge. All of the 60 members have all of the 60 players have their own shoes, and you don't have the correct shoes, so I don't know if you can challenge us this evening, unless you play barefooted.
Hey, let's make it happen.
What baskets we gonna use? Can we use ours when they get to use theirs down there? Make sure you bring your ladder with you.
Let's hear it for our Olympic panel, everybody.
Thank you, man.
That was fun. That was fun.
Great job, boy. Great job.